Welcome, everyone, to episode 59 of the Phoenix Report. I am Jack Connor, and with me is a guy who I had the pleasure of meeting a few months ago. Now, as most of you know who have been listening regularly, or those of you who know me personally, know that I've been getting involved with the world of pro wrestling a little bit more. Specifically with the company Generation Championship Wrestling, GCW for short, which is run by my buddy Jeremy Gomez. He's been on the show a bunch of times. I interviewed him a few episodes ago, and I've had him on my old wrestling panels when I used to do that. I haven't done that as much on my show, although with everything that's going on in the world of wrestling, I probably should start doing it more because there's a lot to talk about. But this was a guy I met a few months ago, a few months before we're taping this, I should say. We did an event. I think it was up in Land O'Lakes somewhere, or up in Brooksville. It was at this festival, and I found out that this guy was involved with GCW as another announcer, which is something I've been doing. By the way, I've been doing commentary for GCW, and so has my guest tonight. And we clicked right away because I found out that this guy is also a musician. Now, of course, I'm in a rock band. He's a hip hop artist. Completely different worlds, of course, but still, the fact that this guy's been able to unite his love of music and pro wrestling really got me curious. And I know he's been in the wrestling business or at least been involved with the wrestling business, I should say, for a couple years now. And he's gotten to know a few people, and this is a guy I've just been getting to know, but he's just a really interesting guy, and I got to work with him with this last show, and I'm happy to have him here tonight. So please welcome to the Phoenix Report, Monteasy.
Hey, man, I'm happy to be here, my brother. It is long time coming. It's good to see you again.
Yeah.
After our wonderful time announcing for GCW. Shout out to GCW, Jeremy, and the family.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be on your podcast, man. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always a little awkward, especially when you don't know the other person and you're immediately supposed to thrust into an announce booth together. But I think for like guys who just met each other that day, I thought we worked pretty well together. We
did, man. It's funny in this world of wrestling and the entertainment business, especially. Mm-hmm. You meet a lot of interesting people.
Absolutely.
You pray that it's more of a positive experience.
For sure.
But when we met, man, you just had a good energy about yourself. We clicked very well. It was like, okay, man, you got it. Yeah, man, I got it. And we just kind of just winged it, and it was the most fun I ever had doing commentary because we literally just winged it.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate that.
It was a lot of fun, man. And when I met you, I was like, man, this guy's got a good little energy about himself, man. I like him, man. He's told me, you had a family out there, and another addition to your family on the way.
Yeah.
And congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you, my friend.
And when we linked up, man, and then you said you wanted me on the podcast, I said I have to do it for my bro.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And the great thing about calling these matches, it's a lot of fun. I mean, you can play it straight and serious, which we were able to do, but also throw in a few jokes there, have a good time, and hopefully try to communicate that to whoever's watching, and hope that And I always thought like the best announcers, or the best commentators, I should say, had a way of like welcoming in the fans. Like Jim Ross, for example, he would always say stuff like, "Thanks for inviting us into your homes," which seems like a small thing, but that always like resonated with me as like, man, I like this guy, so I try to, I know, and I can tell you do the same thing, but like you try to bring that energy to whoever's watching.
Absolutely.
And just try to bring that warmth and not try to talk down to people or talk down to, about the product or anything. So it's always something that I've tried to, to do as far as announcing. I don't know, and I'm sure you've done the same way when you've done commentary.
Absolutely, man. My first experience with commentary is with NGW in Tennessee, and they just gave me they just threw me an opportunity. Swerve was wrestling for that promotion at the time. Mm-hmm. And Isaiah Swerve Scott, for you guys who don't
current
know.
NXT superstar.
Absolutely. Shout out
formerly
to my
known as Shane Strickland.
Absolutely, man. Love you, bro. Thank you for everything.
And I actually first found out about him with Lucha Underground. He played the character Killshot.
Yes. One thing about him, man, he's done everything he can for me to put me on the map, and he's done a lot for me. So when to answer your question, when he put me with NGW, I hit up the promoter, shout out to Cody and Eddie, and it was like, yeah, man, we if we're gonna give you a shot, and I went up there, man, and I winged it. Shout out to my guy Dallas, who I did commentary with at that time, and I just winged it, man. And it's just like, going to school for a communications degree has been the best thing for me, and being a musician and being able to talk to people, and in the entertainment business, you know very, very quick that it's a networking and people versus business.
Absolutely,
a lot of your opportunities you'll get just by your demeanor, your personality, and being a people person will get you a lot more opportunities as opposed to sitting behind a desk or something where you can just answer a phone and just talk to someone. This is a business where it's like, if you get any kind of film degree, music degree, a lot of it has to do with networking and who you know.
And you went to school for communications?
Yes. I'm almost graduated right now with my associate's degree.
Now we're here in St. Pete as we tape this. Are you from St. Pete originally?
I was born in New York.
Okay.
I was born in Queens, New York.
Right.
I was raised here in Florida, so I guess I am from St. Pete, technically. I wasn't in New York a long period of my life, but I was raised here in St. Pete, so I'm a Floridian.
Gotcha. I hear you. Because I was born in Pennsylvania, just outside of Philly, and I moved down here when I was 15. So I'm 35 now, so I've spent a majority of my life down here in Florida, but so it's always people ask, like, where are you from? I'm like, a couple different places.
Absolutely. I never lost my roots, though, and I kind of like, it's kind of like a balance because I have come to adapt the mindset of someone from up north, which is like the hustle and
of course.
a lot of them.
Oh yeah, there's a certain vibe. If you're from the Northeast, there's definitely a different vibe. And Florida is interesting because it's a weird mix of like North, South, and Midwest, kind of all coming together.
Yeah, and it seems like the demographic of people that are moving here are more younger.
Sure.
As opposed to back then, you say, this is still a retirement state, but a lot of it now are people of younger demographics, 40s, 30s, are now moving down here. And you get a whole different batch and mix of people here in Florida, and it's been a wonderful experience, man. I don't know if I'm gonna be here forever. When my kids get of age, I don't know if I'm staying here.
Sure.
But for now, it's definitely the spot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's another thing we connected on right away. It's like you having a few kids and me just kind of being a new dad. So it's like that's another thing we clicked on right away.
Absolutely, man. How's I got to ask you a question, man. How's fatherhood been? How's fatherhood?
It keeps me busy. It's because my girls are little right now. They're 2 years old and 3 months old. So, but it's great. Like, I'll come home and my 2-year-old, both girls, and my 2-year-old will be like, it's like she's starting to talk and say stuff right now, which is hilarious to me. I'll come home and she'll be like, Daddy, how's work? I'm like, really, 2-year-old? You're asking me how work is? It's fine. Thanks for asking. It's funny, but I mean, it's the best. Like, cause she'll come up and give you a hug and just like, there's nothing like it. It's like a drug. I'm holding these little girls, and it's just there's nothing quite like it.
Absolutely, man. It's a feeling, man, that I feel like you can't explain it.
No.
But it's also weird watching. It's almost like if you're a male and you have a daughter,
of course,
or if you're a male and you have a son, or you're a mother and you have a son. It's like watching yourself in another form grow up all over again.
It really is. Like you're kind of living your childhood again vicariously through these little people. And I found the same thing with my sister has a couple kids as well with my nieces and nephews. So that's been a lot of fun as well to see them kind of grow up as well.
Absolutely, it's something that I believe as a parent, it's the most important job you can have, being able to provide, but also being there. Yeah. And it's almost like just learning when you raise them, and then when they get of age, you're there to be there for them, but you don't live their lives for them.
Absolutely.
And now that my oldest is about to be 9, I see the conversations we have like changing because he's growing up. So it's like now I talk to him more as just another person as opposed to him being a kid, but also knowing that he's still a kid and for him to enjoy his childhood. It's a very, very interesting thing.
Absolutely, man. And just, and not to get off on too much of a tangent with that, but like, you look, there's a big difference when you meet someone who, especially boys, but girls too, but like, there's a difference when you meet people who have grown up without fathers than people who grew up with fathers. And it's you don't realize how important of a role you play in that kid's life.
Absolutely.
Until you run into someone who kind of didn't have that. And you see the differences.
Yeah. The emotional differences.
Absolutely.
A lot of the way they're wired.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it could be a lot of trauma behind that person not being there, and just the way that they're wired and the way that they react to things,
and just having a role model in your life.
Absolutely. I believe a role model is extremely important. Having someone that you can depend on, someone that you can talk to, it is extremely important. So that I commend you, man, for being a great father in your kids' lives, and
same to you.
And that is something that we both take very serious.
Absolutely. But getting back to wrestling for a little bit, so you were in Tennessee for a little bit. Were you going to school out there, or how did you wind up out there in the first place?
Actually, I've been based here my whole time.
Okay.
The thing is that when Swerve was working there, we were doing the Swerve City Podcast on the road. We did a tour.
Oh, wow.
So we were doing a world tour, and Tennessee wanted us to do a live podcast. So he was wrestling there. He got everything happened. He got me booked there as well. I love my bro for that. Thank you, bro, once again. And it was an experience going out there because I'd never been. Luckily being with Swerve is like I've been able to travel all over the world thanks to his blessing and the promotions blessing. Shout out to all the promotions that I've been all around the world, but strictly Tennessee. Going there, and then when we did the live podcast, they needed someone to do color. I'm not really a play-by-play guy. I'm more of the color guy, just add personality. Sure. So they was like, yeah, we need a new color guy. And then I was like, well, do you need me? First, I ended up calling my very first show. I ended up calling, had Ultimo Dragon on the card.
Nice.
Ultimo Dragon and Tajiri, and I'm just like,
so those are some big names.
Yeah, and it was a lot of pressure I felt, but they loved it. And I've ended up doing 3 shows with them, and thanks to that connection, and I will definitely be back. But that's how I ended up getting linked up in Tennessee, was through doing the podcast live, and then just branching out myself from there.
That's awesome. I'm assuming you've probably been a wrestling fan your whole life?
My whole life. My first pay-per-view I remember watching was WrestleMania 8.
Yeah.
It was Roddy Piper versus Bret Hart, Macho Man versus Ric Flair.
Yes.
My very first pay-per-view I ever remember watching.
That's awesome. For me, I don't even remember like when the first thing I watched it, because I don't remember a particular part where I started watching. I just always knew that, like, as a kid I loved Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior.
Absolutely.
And stuff like that. And I think it came from one of my cousins. It might have been from like one of the early Survivor series. That might be one of my first memories. But I knew that, like, my cousin who lived down here, she had like WWF magazines at the time, and it just, I always loved Hogan and Brett and all those guys, growing up, and kind of got away from it for a few years, from like 94 to 99, got back into it in 99, and just, I've always been into it since.
Absolutely, man. I believe that you don't want to lose. One thing I'll be openly honest with you, man. Recently I just had to start going back to therapy because I felt like the business was kind of overtaking my love for wrestling, and I didn't want to lose that. So, like, I didn't want to lose that feeling when I was watching WrestleMania 8, or that feeling when I was watching Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper, and that feeling. Sometimes when you get involved in something, you kind of lose that. It's like being a basketball player. Yeah. It's like, okay, I see LeBron James from TV, but now I'm a basketball player and I have to play with LeBron James or against him. So, where it's like you lose that excitement that you had as a fan. Right, because he becomes competition. Right, he becomes competition, or he becomes in the same league as you, or you see him all the time, So that mystique kind of goes away. And I see that a lot with, like, guys who play music for a living, and because they're playing music for a living, but they're not necessarily doing the type of music they want to do, and that causes them to just kind of be bitter, and like they don't really have that same excitement anymore. They don't really look at it as fans. It's just a job, and that's something I've always worried about. Being in bands, it's like, man, I would love to do this for a living, but at the same time, I worry it's like, well, would that kill my enjoyment for it? Like, and for me, it's always like, all right, I'm doing this not because I have to, but because I want to. Absolutely, it's like being a successful artist. Yeah. That has a hit song. Yeah. And then in 2019, you drop a hit song and it becomes a smash. And then 2029, 10 years later, you're performing the same song and it doesn't have that same feeling because you've been doing it so long.
Well, sure.
But you want to tell them, hey, listen to my new song that I did. They don't care about that.
Yeah.
They care about the song you did 10 years ago. That's why they're there to see you.
Oh, for sure.
So it's learning as an artist. See, I'm in a very, very weird thing, and you're here with me because you're in the wrestling business and you're an artist.
Right.
So creatively, we're in two of the most opinionated businesses
for sure.
of the world. Like music and wrestling are two of the most opinionated, and wrestling especially because that's really, not saying women aren't involved in it, but men really voice their opinion in wrestling.
Yeah. So, I mean, go to any social media chat room, you name it. Yeah, like wrestling fans are vocal, and they will let you know if they don't like something.
Absolutely,
right away.
And being in this business and blending the music in the business, you have to develop tough skin. You have to, and what I brought back about the anxiety and not losing the love for wrestling, to stay to your point, it's learning how to take all this that you experience and not lose love for it.
Yeah.
So that's why I've started releasing other music that is not wrestling related, just so I can kind of keep my sanity and kind of do what I want to do. I've been doing theme songs for people since 2014.
Yeah, I mean, I was even burying the lead. I should have led with this in the introduction. You just created the theme song for Sammy Guevara in AEW, and as we record this, AEW's been on the air on TNT for about 2 weeks now for a Wednesday Night Dynamite, and the very first match was Sammy Guevara versus Cody Rhodes. And he came out to your song.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Thank you, man. Thank you. See, it's also learning to appreciate the blessings as they come along and not to lose foresight of the journey that you're on.
Sure.
Because when you're on this journey, you can see so many things and you want to get somewhere so bad that the destination and the journey is being missed to the destination. And I don't want to lose sight of that. So that's why I go to therapy and I do different things so that when I accomplish these goals, I still have that same burning desire to appreciate it. Now, what I mean by that is I recognize that when my song being on TNT television, that it's a very rare thing for people to get that opportunity because you have to make connections and that a wrestler and a person has to fully trust you to be able to have that opportunity to do that.
How did that happen, by the way? Do you know Sammy, or have you guys...
So we don't necessarily know each other very well, but he's friends with Swerve.
Okay.
So he saw what I was doing. Obviously, with me and him going around all over the place, he knows I make theme songs. He's heard a lot of my stuff. My resume's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And I've always been in demand for these past 5 years. It'll be 6 in February. And he just hit me up. He's like, "Hey, man, I need a theme. I need a theme song for when I go to AEW." And so I said, I did this in May. I recorded the song in May.
Yeah.
So I said, "Hey, man, give me some time. Let me find the right music." And so the first thing I thought about was taking flight. Like, it's just his opportunity to take flight.
Yeah.
And I wrote the record. I sent it to him. He loved it. There's actually an intro part to the song that they cut, but it's like a build up to the song.
Yeah.
They cut it.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason they cut it. But so I sent it to him. He loved it. I don't know if this episode will be out before then, but October 25th, the music video comes out.
Nice.
I'm shooting a music video for it. I just got my wardrobe and stuff together for it. Actually, I just got my last piece of wardrobe for it today. And we're going to Sarasota, Florida to shoot the video.
Nice.
And I'm going to shoot the music video, put it on my personal YouTube channel, and just have that separate, independent of everything else. So
very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, but it's a great experience. These past 2 weeks, it's like I was fighting tears. Just my grandmother was sitting there watching it with me.
Oh, yeah?
And she's been with me through this whole ride. From my very first theme song, she goes to every WrestleMania with me.
No kidding.
And for her to sit there and to watch this live with me as it's happening meant so much to me.
Yeah.
And, for this experience, to say my song has been on TNT television And I can say that I've made music for every company besides WWE, Ring of Honor, Impact, New Japan. I've made music for every company except WWE.
That's incredible. That's a cool grandma, by the way, taking you to WrestleMania all the time.
Absolutely. She's right there with me. We ride or die together, and it's just an amazing experience, man. So when I first got that call about doing the song for him, and he first hit me up, and hopefully, maybe a live performance can happen one day.
That'd be amazing. Like play him out to the ring.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Hopefully that's in the cards. I mean, I'm pushing it as much as I can to get that opportunity.
Yeah. On NXT, they had this guy play Adam Cole out to the ring.
Josiah Williams. Yeah.
I never heard of the guy, but like I guess he's got like a job there with WWE now. I think he's working for the company.
Yeah, Josiah is. Yeah. Josiah. He's actually on the Swerve City Podcast. He's like episode 3. Make sure you guys check that out. YouTube.com/Swerve City Podcast. To speak on that, I want to definitely do a public salute to him for taking that opportunity. It's a very rare thing, and he had a plan, he took a vision, he ran with it, and when I saw that, I was like, you know what, man, he broke new ground because WWE's not known for giving people opportunities like that.
Not very often, no.
And for him to take that opportunity.
And was he like a YouTube guy as well? Was he signed or anything? Or?
No, he just came out and he started remixing themes of wrestlers.
That's awesome.
And he took that and he started building a fan base with it. I think it probably took him a year to like really build it, and then WWE signed him to a deal, and he's been there ever since. For me personally, it's not like I don't want the opportunity to do something like that, but as I get older, I'm more enjoying media as opposed to the music. I love the music, but I enjoy the media and interviewing people and being a media personality.
Sure.
As I get older, the music will always be there. But for him to take it to make the music and then build from there has been great.
That's awesome.
For me personally, I just look at it like, man, if I can get something media-wise, because I'm not the kind of guy that's going to make music forever. Like, I'm the kind of guy where, like, if I don't have anything to say, I don't rap.
Yeah.
Hopefully that branches out the AEW opportunities and my resume builds to something more.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to think of like how many hip hop artists have actually like done that, and like one of the few things I know Wale recently did that with the Street Profits on NXT, but I think the only other one I can really think of is like back in WrestleMania 2000, where I think Ice-T played The Godfather out to the ring. So I mean, you've had a few rock bands do that, like Motorhead with Triple H and all that. So that's awesome. But I gotta say, I think you're probably the first hip hop artist that I've had on my show. I've had other people who have like kind of dabbled with it a little bit, but yeah, that's another thing. I mean, obviously both being wrestling fans, but getting into the music thing, I've always been curious about what it's like for an underground hip hop artist. Because like obviously playing in bands, like there are certain venues where we'll play and certain ways that we try to get our music out there. And I was always curious how it was for like an aspiring hip hop artist. Like if like, is it more like based on like making stuff in the studio, or like do you play out live often? Or I'm just curious how that goes.
With the wrestling lane, everything that I've done has been naturally just wrestling related.
Right.
So I would go to wrestling venues and perform around the world at wrestling venues and the independents all over the world.
Yeah.
I'm just now starting to get to other crowds, but I like sticking with the wrestling crowd because they know me and I've proven myself. So it's like when they see Teasy perform, they know. I kind of stopped touring as much because I believe absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Sure. And
this is a lane where you kind of don't want to wear it out.
Yeah.
You're a special attraction as opposed to being a part of the card.
Sure.
Now, if I'm doing commentary or something, I'm part of the card.
Yeah.
But if it's performing wrestling music, I kind of fall back and I kind of just relax. I do more just creating content.
Yeah.
And putting music out.
It's also a very niche thing as far as
yes.
It's like making music specifically for wrestling. That's a very specific audience.
Absolutely. It's a very specific audience. There's a very specific lane that they like. They'll let you know if they don't like it or if they do. Mm-hmm. And it is something that I learned that, you have to pick and choose your spots with it.
For sure.
And I learned to master that in wrestling. Mm-hmm. And with the music is to pick and choose your spots. I've made music for hundreds of guys, but I learned to pick and choose my spots of what I put out, when to put out albums of wrestling stuff, and I learned where to be and where not to be. It's different from being an underground hip hop artist because when I feel like hip hop is such a young genre that is just starting to age. Like rappers are just now starting to get old.
I've heard that, like some of the older guys say, it's like, well, rap it's a young man's game, and I think that's interesting because certainly in the rock world you have a lot of guys who still go out and tour on a really high level even as they get older. In fact, that's like more of the case. It's more of a case of the old guys, still getting airplay. It's harder for the younger guys to actually get airplay. It's kind of a weird thing in reverse, and I don't know if that's particularly good for the future of the genre, but it's also cool to see like longevity as well.
Absolutely. It is reverse, I feel like, when it comes to like bands and rock music.
Yeah.
That Mick Jagger could be 70, 80 years old and perform the same songs.
Sure.
He's performed for 50 years, 60 years. Hip-hop is just getting there because it's so young.
Sure.
We're now seeing Jay-Z become 50-something years old.
Yeah.
Wu-Tang and those guys be in their late 40s. So now we're first seeing this. Now we see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel for guys who are in a different demographic of their life.
Yeah.
As opposed to being so young and being the young guys. We grew up with Jay-Z. We grew up with Snoop Dogg.
Sure.
We grew up with these people. So with our age demographic, I'm 31.
Yeah.
So I've actually watched these guys age.
Sure.
Because I was a kid when they first came out. Mm-hmm. So it is it's good to see. I believe that there is a demographic for people of that age group now because now people are just starting to get older. Mm-hmm. So I do believe it's hard though for underground hip hop artists. It's harder because we have to stay relevant more consistently. We have to put out more material because it's a here today, gone tomorrow young man's game. Mm-hmm. So you have to stay on people's radar. You have to continuously collaborate with people. You have to, whoever's the young new guy out, you have to get on his song and extend your career.
Yeah.
With him giving you that buzz because it's his time. So, as in with rock bands, I'm pretty sure whereas like if you're the established band, if you want to put another band on, you can. Like if you're Metallica and you see another 4 group of guys,
you might take them on tour with you.
You might take them on tour with you, but you're still dominating the radio play.
And I mean, in the rock world, we don't you don't really have as much like collaboration like on the record. It's just probably because there are so many different guys. Like occasionally you might see a guy do a guest spot here and there, but I think especially with rappers it's a lot easier because you just kind of show up with your voice and kind of do a verse or two. And
can I ask you a question? As being someone
please,
who's been in the band, I have to ask you this as somebody who's been in bands.
Yeah.
Why does it, from the outside looking in, and this is just somebody who's a hip hop artist, but has talked to people who are in bands.
Sure.
Why is it so hard for bands to stay together?
That is the $1 million question, and I think, like in my case, I just recently went through this. I started my band about 6 years ago, and for most of that time, it was me and the same 4 other guys. I think just over time, especially depending on what level you're at, especially if you're at like an unsigned band and you're doing this and also balancing a day job or whatever else you might be going on, and you're not making big money, sometimes that can be a factor with it, especially if you have guys who lose interest in it. I just recently dealt with a couple of guys in my band, and I'm not going to single anyone out, but I had one guy in particular who didn't really like playing live anymore. And maybe it's because he was getting older. Maybe it was because he was stressed with his job. Maybe it might have been a personality conflict. I mean, I still get along with all those guys. They're still friends of mine. There's no bad blood on my end. But like, I think sometimes with sometimes as time goes on, people just kind of just go through different experiences, and maybe it's financial, maybe it has to do with other circumstances. I don't really know why. I think it's very difficult. You look at hip hop groups, for example. I mean, a lot of times you get a lot of solo acts, but you look, like you mentioned, the Wu-Tang Clan. I mean, some of those guys aren't with us anymore. Rest in peace, ODB. But it's also difficult for groups to stay together.
Yeah, hip hop
in any genre.
Hip hop groups is a died art. There's not many hip hop groups anymore. At a time, you had a Tribe Called Quest, you had EPMD, you had Wu-Tang, you had you could name them.
My cousin always listened to Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Bone Thugs and Harmony. They even went through a time when they weren't together.
Sure.
I think that what happens as musicians is, this is the thing. If you don't make it, the 9-to-5 job will kill your dream.
It can.
I thoroughly believe that a 9-to-5 is one of the worst things for a creative person, and you become dormant. And creators, we don't think normal, in a sense of we have to. It's a drug that we constantly have to feed. Hopefully in a healthy way. Mm-hmm. We have to constantly be creating, and it's a structure that. This is why it's a lot hard for musicians to maintain relationships. It's hard for musicians to sometimes be the best fathers and mothers. Sure. It's hard for us because we have that.
Especially if you're on the road all the time.
If you're on the road. The thing about creating is there's no stability in creation because your mind is formulating a puzzle piece that is always coming together. Mm-hmm. So when you create a song, it's a whole bunch of different thoughts coming together to make a song. When you're in a band, it's you and a bunch of people, both all adding their mix, to make it create a record, to create one song. And it's the same thing with being a dream killer. And I'll bring it back to why bands break up, and why Bone Thugs, and I'll bring it right back to that point. Mm-hmm. When you're a creator, you're constantly pulling things from the air. So a lot of times creators, sometimes they go for exercise, they just walk, they'll smoke weed, they'll do whatever they have to do because that creative mind is always going. But in a way, we become one-track minded because that's our thought. It's putting our creations together. When you're in a 9-to-5, everything is just so dormant. You know what time you get off work. You know what time you're there, and you're just like stuck. And you're not using your creativity. And for entertainers, it's the toughest thing to be able to keep these jobs. So it's harder for us a lot of times to stay interested in those jobs because there's no creative thing. What happens though when you make it, and that band, all of a sudden that record blows up and you become a group. I believe that before you do anything with any band or any group, because I was in a hip hop group too, and it separated, and it was 5 of us. I was the oldest guy, and I was like the leader of the group. Yeah, we're still brothers. Yeah, but what happens is, okay, let's sit down and have a conversation. Do you like touring? What do you like to do? If this happens to be successful, what do you like to do? Do you like touring? Do you have a marriage? You make the beats, okay? How often do you make beats? Do you what is success to you? If we blow up and we can go to the MTV Awards, is that what you want? Sure. Or do you not like attention? Or if we do media interviews, are you going to show up? Yeah. This is stuff that we don't ask.
Honestly, I think you kind of answered your own question. Anytime you're in a group situation full of creative people, it's very difficult to get everyone on the same page. Right. And it might have to do with money or egos or different goals or different attitudes, whatever. But, it goes to show you it's very difficult to do. And if you're in the right situation, if you can make it work, then you've already won.
It's like a shout out to those groups that no matter what they do, they can check. There's not many of them. There's not that many of them, but they can check their ego at the door. Yeah. Because you always see the same story. We all came from nothing. We all were eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Mm-hmm. We all were sleeping in the same apartment. We all were hungry. We was cramming out music like no tomorrow. Yeah. Then when we make it, so many things separates us from what brought us together. Then all of a sudden you feel entitled because we all have money now. We all are in the studio. Life, the same inspiration isn't there because we all live in life. But that's why they always say, like, your best albums or your first album is normally your best because you lived your whole life for that moment, for that project. And then when you're on album number 3, all you did was tour.
Sure.
And you have to use that same creative mind to have something to talk about.
Sure.
So
it happens all the time.
It happens all the time. So I naturally believe, like, to go back to your further point about being an underground hip-hop artist, me being alone, I've been able to channel my own thoughts. Now I'm in a group with Swerve. We're a hip-hop group now.
Oh, yeah?
So we're releasing an album on April 4th. We're WrestleMania weekend. We're releasing an album.
Nice.
So I got him in the studio rapping now.
Oh,
so
nice.
Now I'm for my group experience, I've learned, okay, this is his vision musically. Mm-hmm. Even though he's not proven as an artist,
right?
But his vision and his ideas of musically challenges me because it's not what I'm used to doing. Mm-hmm. So for him, it gets him the creative thoughts of getting the music out. For me, it's saying, okay, I've been kind of bored doing what I've been doing. Let me link with somebody else and try his ideas. And that's why the music we've had has been working so well as a group, because it's like we both understand each other. Mm-hmm. So the thing about groups too, man, there's one last point.
Yeah.
The thing about groups as well too, and being in a group as well, and being able to collaborate with each other, is understanding, I believe, first that the common goal should always remain the common goal. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes when you are in a rock band or you're in a hip hop band, or even if you're solo, you can always end up missing what the common goal is of the music and why you guys got together, or you as a solo artist, why you're making music. Yeah. The toughest thing as a creative person, and I will keep it 1,000, I will keep it a thousand right here, is scrolling your Instagram or scrolling on Facebook, and I say this with no ego, mm-hmm. but knowing there's people that you're better than, mm-hmm. people that you're probably more talented than in your mind, mm-hmm. and watching other people's success, and not saying you're not hating on them, but it's just the natural instinct of you as a creator saying, what I have to do to get there? Yeah. What do I have to do to get my piece of the pie?
Oh, yeah.
And you notice that opportunity is for them, but you're still starving and you just want your chance.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a mind trick as an artist. It's a Jedi mind trick. And it can become tough. It becomes like, I challenge it. Like, there's a theme song guy that came out before me named Megaran. Mm-hmm. Megaran's been around a long time doing wrestling music. Really? Even before I started.
Yeah?
In 2014, yeah. So he's like my big bro. He started, and then I came along, mm-hmm. and then Josiah came along. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, as far as the underground hip hop artist, that's kind of the way it's been.
So you guys have kind of like inspired each other, and are sort of, you guys are kind of like pioneers in this very specific, set of, area of hip hop focused on wrestling.
Absolutely, and it's been cool seeing someone come after you and take it to another level.
Yeah,
because that's the way it was with Megaran. I took it and I just like did my thing. And Josiah came, and Josiah took it to another level. Mm-hmm. So it's weird when you've been in something for such a long time. And I'll tell you what's scary. I'll tell you what's scary for me now is my reinvention stage. Now I'm in a reinvention. Mm-hmm. Now I know that the climate is changing. You have to be smart enough as an entertainer to know when it's time. It's like being The Rock and saying, sure. Okay, I just dropped the belt to Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam 2002. It's time for me to go do movies now.
Yeah.
In the peak of your career.
Yeah.
He just left, and he fulfilled everything he wanted to do.
Yeah. I
feel like with the AEW theme song, I fulfilled what I wanted, mm-hmm. as far as a musician with wrestling. Now, if I end up making a song for a WWE wrestler, that's great. That's the tip of the iceberg for me.
Absolutely.
But if it doesn't happen, I've done everything I've wanted to do.
Yeah.
Now it's me working with Swerve and reinventing myself. And Swerve said the smartest thing you did was in the peak of what you're doing, you're reinventing yourself. You're not waiting until you're irrelevant.
Sure.
to do it. You're learning how to do it when you still have something to give people, so that now people can see you in a different light outside of just that. And it's almost like, if you're like an Ice Cube and you start doing movies.
Yeah.
You do a Friday in the peak of your career, in the peak of Ice Cube's rap career.
Yeah.
Shortly after Today Was a Good Day and all that came out, in the peak of his life, he started doing movies. So, LL Cool J started doing movies when he's been around for a long time. He came out, 85? And by like 94, 95, he started doing movies. He understood that the climate was changing. And you have to be smart enough to do that. Now I'm in a stage of my career where I understand that the climate's changing. Let me go do some commentary.
No. When you say the climate's changing, do you mean like for like that, like you're in a different place, or is there like something external that like is affecting your decision to do that?
Something external, something in my gut is telling me the industry changes. It's like the music industry. Every 3-4 years, somebody else is out. Not saying that in the sense of Josiah or Megaran. I'm saying as far as in a sense of saying, okay, what happens when you're established and you're known?
Yeah.
It's different when you first come out because you still got something to prove. But what happens when you're in year 5, 6 and you've already proven what you wanted?
Right.
Then
how do you still stay fresh and relevant? And
there you go. Yeah. And that's the toughest part for a lot of people because...
Or stay genuine, I guess is the right way.
And stay genuine, not become bitter if it doesn't happen for you.
Sure.
But not to become big-headed if it does.
Yeah.
So you learn to say, okay, how can I reinvent myself? What can I do to reinvent myself as Monteasy the brand?
Yeah. And
still make music, still do commentary, still do a podcast. So now everything that I do now is more of a business look. Every picture that I'm gonna start taking, everything's gonna be more business orientated. Because now it's gonna start looking as I elevated. It's like, this is a good example. It's like you start out as Biggie, then you want to become P. Diddy. You want to become the boss, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's how I look at my career. It's like, okay, I've been Biggie for a long time. Now
you want to go more into that like entrepreneur level,
right?
That like that Diddy and guys like Master P and all that stuff.
Absolutely. I want to start. Actually, my goal, and I'll do this breaking news on your podcast, man. I want to start a production company, and I want to have this for More to Life Entertainment. Moore is my first last name after my granddad and my mom. That's my mom's maiden name,
right?
And I want to open a actual like a entertainment center where I can bring artists in, bring known artists in to give them advice. I want to build a studio.
Sure. And
I want to build like a other building where we do like promo classes and stuff like that, and have a link to the WWE and AEW for people to have a link for artists to get themselves heard through these wrestling companies and through the connections that I have. Hey man, here's a number to so-and-so from Impact Wrestling. Here's a number to so-and-so from Ring of Honor. Submit your music to them and see if it can be used for a pay-per-view or, and then essentially build your career so that you can just make a career out of this. So you could do it bigger than what I've ever done. You can actually have an established career as a theme song person and also have the number to each and every brand and maybe get signed for your music and be a brand. Yeah. So that'll be that. And then I also want to do I do motivational speaking. So I want to bring build an actual building in a production company.
Wow.
To teach motivational speaking classes, to do a podcast network, and to help people with theme songs, and put all three things that I do together. I could have a little room in the podcast room and we can practice doing commentary.
That's genius, man. Like just the fact that you're looking all those several steps ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I'm looking to go, and I'm looking to do that within. I have like a 10-year plan. By the time I'm 40, I want to have this starting to get somewhere in there established. I'm already starting now, but at least to have the building rented and to have the stuff in there and the networks. That's what I'm looking at. I'm not just. That's why I said, hey, what can I do to reinvent the wheel for myself, bro? What can I do to look at everything beyond that? Because I think the problem with people sometimes, the problem with looking so much into the journey so much is that you don't have the destination, but you got to learn to appreciate the journey to get to that destination. So that's why I'm looking to. That's what I'm looking to build. I'm still going to put out music. I'm still going to do that. I'm just looking 10 years ahead now, as opposed to when I was first doing these theme songs. I was just looking at the next song. Mm-hmm. Now, since I've done what I wanted to do, now I'm looking 10 years ahead.
I mean, getting into the music side of things, are you, and I don't know if you're doing this with Swerve or on your own, were you thinking about possibly making some music that wasn't necessarily wrestling related, that was something a little more personal, something just sort of outside, the wrestling end of it, just something, I guess either more mainstream hip hop or anything like that? Yes.
Actually, with Swerve, the music that we make is not wrestling related. It's just in the wrestling demographic because he's a wrestler.
And he happens to be a wrestler.
He happens to be a wrestler. The music we make is nothing wrestling related.
Got it.
So that gives me my creative juices because it's regular music. Yeah. It's not, we don't sing nothing wrestling. It's like a regular song.
Yeah.
It's just that he's a wrestler and I'm a hip hop artist in wrestling.
Sure.
So that gives me the creative juices as well. I'm starting my solo album called Erica's Son. I'm actually starting that project as well. There's a lot that I haven't, in these 5 years, I've not spoken on. Stuff with my relationships.
Yeah.
Stuff on my current relationship. I'm in a long distance relationship right now. Mm-hmm. The struggles with that.
Yeah, it's more personal.
Yeah, it's more personal. Yeah, and I have to get it out. Because if I don't, I'm not going to be satisfied with myself if I don't release it. Because I've been holding it in to fulfill my other goals so long that my gut and everything's itching me to tell me, hey, it's time to start slowly reinventing yourself.
It's like, I mean, you've been making all these wrestling themes to hype up these other guys. It's like, now I want to tell you about myself.
Absolutely.
It's kind of that vibe.
Absolutely. And I think that like the Sammy Guevara thing is going to be the transition.
Sure.
Because that is like, okay, how much bigger, what more can he do? Yeah. Now it's like, okay, let me bring you into my life.
Yeah, it's a vehicle for you to allow to get people hooked in and be like, okay, you liked my wrestling themes. Here's something from me that's not wrestling related, but at least now you have that platform.
And it's been a blessing because I don't leave the wrestling business.
Sure.
That I'm doing this because making music with Swerve, he's on NXT. I'm on the podcast with him every other week. We release our music. We're still in the lane. It's just that we're not doing wrestling themes.
Yeah.
And the only thing about it is that sometimes you can get pigeonholed. That's the one thing about being in a niche is that they only see you for that.
Well, look at how long it's taken Chris Jericho to have success with Fozzy.
It's been, 15 years?
17 years.
Wow.
And just now they've started to, get played on mainstream rock radio.
That's a long
And it's
ride.
they're on, album number 6 or 7. And, they've just now started to kind of cross over. I mean, granted, they've always had a little bit of steam, just because of who he is. He's been able to get booked on, festivals overseas and here in the States. And he knows a lot of people in the music world. But still, it's you've been able to get a foot in the door, but now it's they're starting to, get some success with the song Judas, which he comes out to now, and so on and so forth. But it took him a while to get to that, and he's a famous guy already for one thing.
That's one person I would love to sit down and talk to. I feel like
God.
My two inspirations in the world of wrestling is The Rock and Chris Jericho, just for their ability to be multi-talented.
Yeah.
And I wish I could sit down and just have a conversation with him and pick his brain and say, look, man, how do you balance all of this and stay relevant in each thing? Chris Jericho has remained relevant 25, 30 years.
Absolutely.
And always found a way to stay fresh in a world where I'm pretty sure he's done everything he wanted to do in wrestling.
Yeah.
But he finds a way every single time to stay fresh. A new catchphrase, a new look. He'll just change something.
Yeah.
And it works every time. And The Rock will not show up on WWE television for 3-4 years. He'll just come out there and stand there, and it's like a new person every time.
Yeah.
A new catchphrase. He'll come out and do his rock bottom and cut a promo on somebody. But Chris Jericho, for his ability, even now at 48, 49 years old, to stay extremely relevant like this in a climate where you're here today, gone tomorrow, and there's hundreds of new wrestlers out there.
Exactly. He kind of calls himself the David Bowie of wrestling, and I would agree with that because he's always reinvented himself.
Absolutely, and that's the thing that I'm like now learning to do. Now is just I know what to do. Now it's just putting the image with what I want to do, and do that for the hip hop artists.
Definitely.
And take that and make that to. I call myself the Sting of wrestling music.
Yeah.
Like I call myself the Sting of wrestling. I have a small audience, and I'm not the biggest named guy in the world, but I feel like I got this far without needing Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Nice.
You know, that's why I call myself Sting, the Sting of wrestling music, because I've gotten this far, and I'm now interviewing wrestling talent,
gotcha.
WWE talent, and I didn't need that vessel to get there. Now, some people might need it, some people might have wanted that, but for me, I just feel good that I did it on my own muscle. Yeah. It's taking me a long time.
Kind of like AJ Styles almost.
Right,
well.
Exactly. That's
done that.
A Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
You know, somebody who, a Booker T in a way.
Yeah.
Somebody who, even though he had a long career at WWE, but
of course
he made a name for himself before he got there. A DDP, a Goldberg.
Yes.
They made names for themselves, and then when they went to WWE, they were already established. So if I ever even get an opportunity to go there, I'll already be an established name. It's just that now I'll have a wider audience.
Yeah, I've always thought it was cool how a lot of guys from the hip hop world transitioned into acting and business and stuff. And I think it's always a smart move. If you're able to do it, you should absolutely do it. I wish more guys in the rock world were able to cross over like that.
I think it'll happen.
Yeah,
it'll happen. I just think that for hip hop artists, it's just a point of no return. We're kind of forced because it's the only way we can eat. Because with the genre,
that's true. Because like you said, I mean, rap is it kind of favors the younger guys,
right?
As you get older, to just rely on music,
right. So you'll put out a clothing line, you'll put this out, and just try to find ways to make money, as if you're a Pearl Jam.
Yeah,
you can perform even flow till it's done.
Yeah, they don't really need to do all that stuff because they still have their fan base. They're still able to perform, play big houses all around the world. They don't even need to put out new music. They still do, but it's an interesting dynamic. Maybe rock bands need to start doing that in reverse. Kind of start coming out with these different things and be like, okay, now that we've got you in the door, here's our music.
I just don't.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know what the answer is.
Right. I feel like it. How can I say this? I feel like the industry needs to balance itself out.
Yeah.
I don't feel like the older guys should just get out the way.
No, not at all.
But yeah. I feel like they should. I feel like it's a duty for whether you're a rapper, a rock star, country star, to get yours, and then when you get to a certain point, put another band on.
Yeah.
Put another, or at least make a phone call for somebody, or put somebody on tour with you, or give them an opportunity to make money because it's going to extend your career. For example, if I use Drake for an example, or who's a band now that's like a Red Hot Chili Peppers or Green Day.
Sure.
They've been out since the late 80s, early 90s. Now they're at a point where they've been out 20 years, 25 years.
Yeah.
Now that demographic has changed. If you catch a band who is more of the demographic that is your kid's age, they can grow up with that person. You can make music with them and extend your lifeline.
Yeah.
While still letting them have their time. It's like you can let someone eat and get theirs without you feeling like you don't get yours either. Because once you got yours, it's like, okay, I did this.
Yeah.
It's almost like the rapper Big Daddy Kane made a good point.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, hey man, what do you think about Jay-Z? Like, how do you feel about Jay-Z? Why don't you do the things Jay-Z did? And Big Daddy Kane made a great point. He was like, I've already been Jay-Z. He's like, maybe not in the business sense, but I've been the top guy.
Yeah.
He's like, me and Rakim in the 80s were it. So he's like, I've had that moment. I know what that feels like. Now I'm just performing my old hits because I'm having fun. But I know it's not my time anymore, but I've been that guy. Jay took it to another level, and I feel like that way with the wrestling music. It's like I've already performed all over the place.
Yeah,
I've done it. You know,
he did everything he wanted to do.
Right, and that's how I feel like.
That's a cool place to be at.
Yeah, that's how I feel like with themes at this point. And it's kind of a scary thing to reinvent yourself, but I knew this time was coming, and now I feel like it's the time for me to do it.
Excellent. Where did the name Monteasy come from?
So here's a true story. It's kind of a weird thing. Every rapper watched Scarface. Mm-hmm. Every rapper tries to take something from Scarface, even if they didn't live none of that life.
Wasn't there a rapper named Scarface back then?
There's a rapper named Scarface. Okay. Yes. Brad Smith's out of Texas. Shout out to Scarface. So my original rap name was Message Montana. Mm-hmm. My first rap name. Okay, so I'm gonna make it short but sweet. I'm gonna give you the full story. When I first started rapping, my rap name was The Demon. 16. Evil bars. I was like Eminem. Like rapping like that. That wasn't me. So I changed it to The Message. So I was The Demon, then I went to The Message because I feel like I had a message in my music. Then I watched Scarface, Tony Montana. Mm-hmm. You know how that story goes. Message Montana.
Yeah.
Monteasy is just a play on Montana.
Gotcha.
So it's still Scarface now.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's just instead of Montana, I can't just go by Montana.
Yeah.
So that was already trademarked, and there's already a rapper named that. So I just said Monteasy, and it's just like a nickname. It's like just a play on words.
Yeah, kind of like Lil Wayne. They call him Wheezy sometimes.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Yep.
I know it's a completely different world for me, so this is cool. I'm learning all this different stuff.
Absolutely, man.
And for me, and this is just part of my story, especially when I was growing up. And I think I think that it's always like this to a degree when you're a kid. For a lot of kids, especially like the rock guys. Like sometimes we get a little bitter towards hip hop just because because it became so huge, it started to influence what we were doing. Like in the late '90s, you had guys like Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit kind of embracing that, and you have guys like me who were a little bit on the purer side, was like, the hell is this? And so it's like I think as I've grown older, I've gotten more. I still wouldn't consider myself a hip hop fan, but I definitely appreciate it a lot more for the creativity, seeing guys like the Roots come out who are legitimate musicians and come out and be like, oh wow, okay, so it's like this is a side of it that I haven't seen before. Like when Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake do that history of rap segment on the Tonight Show, you see the evolution of it. It's like, oh wow, okay, there's a lot more to this than I thought there was. So it's cool for me to just learn all this stuff because I know how popular it is. And even though I'm not necessarily connected to that world, I feel like getting to talk to guys like yourself helps to kind of bridge that understanding. And especially as I've gotten older, I've just mellowed out. Just all the things that all the little defiant things ways that I used to be when I was a kid. It's like I don't feel that way anymore, and I don't need to to take such a stand. I already know who I am. I already know what I'm all about. I can still collaborate with different stuff.
It's a culture thing, man.
It is.
We all grow in different cultures
for sure.
So naturally, from my urban background, I lean towards hip hop. But my mom had me on rock music my whole life.
Yeah.
So I know Pearl Jam when I hear it. I know I could differentiate a Metallica song from a Guns N' Roses song.
Right.
From I know who Slash is. I know who these people are. Mm-hmm. I might not know their extensive history.
Sure.
But I know their music. I know I know when a Slash record is on. I know when he's playing. I know that stuff because my mom had me on those things.
Yeah.
So, I know the difference. I know the reason why some fans might not be a fan of Nine Inch Nails or Metallica band or what's the difference between 80s hard rock and then 90s grunge with Nirvana and understanding that
especially now in the hip hop world and not to cut you off there but I hear a lot of guys complain about guys who are fan of rap from the 80s or 90s or the early 2000s complain about some of the rappers. They call them the mumble rappers, I guess like Lil Wayne or I can't think of the names of everyone, but like you hear some of these guys and like just the way they deliver stuff, it's not quite as clear as like say like Tupac or Biggie or something from back in the day.
And speaking,
what's your opinion on that?
Okay, I can totally understand a person from a perspective who is not a hip hop fan that hears that and be like, yo, that's garbage, because that's how I feel as a hip hop artist.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that it's not good. I'm just saying that I just need to hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
You can rap however you want to rap. Sure. Just pronunciate it.
Of course.
Let me just hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know? And if I can't do that, then I'm like, okay, then maybe I'm just going to be the old guy on the porch that just doesn't like it. And I could be 100% comfortable with that. Not hating on anybody, get your money, but I'm a value person of art. I can understand. I always try to look at things from another perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a pure writer,
yeah,
and you and your band sit down and you write the lyrics together, or your lead singer writes all the lyrics, however you guys do it, and then you hear a hip hop song and the guy is just mumbling, and it's successful, you're like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah.
But you're sitting here with your guitarist,
for sure,
your bassist, and your drummer, and putting all this time into your craft of your music, but you hear this on the radio selling millions of records. Like, what the hell is this? So I can understand it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like anything else, and it comes, within the same genre or with other genres. People are naturally jealous of stuff that if it gets to a certain point, and if people get to a certain level of success, but they do it in a way that you wouldn't necessarily do it, that bothers a lot of people.
Yeah.
It happens in the rock world as well. Like, there's certain bands out there who I'm a fan of, who it's not always a cool thing to be a fan of. Like bands like Nickelback, for example. I see a lot of memes and stuff about that. What is the story? Not to bring it. What is the story? Why do people not like it? You know what, man? I like them. I think they're a good band. I wouldn't say I'm a diehard fan of theirs, but like I like some of their songs. I think, and this is my opinion, I think because they got so heavily overplayed on the radio, people started to get sick of them. Some people think that like all their songs sound the same, which I can kind of see that. I mean, I don't personally agree with that because I think they have a lot more material that people don't hear. I think at some point it just became the cool thing to kind of hate on them. And maybe because they had such crossover appeal, maybe they had such like... They had some heavier songs, but they also had some more like pop-leaning songs. People just saw them as like being fake or too corporate or whatever it is, and that got to be the case. Same thing with like I'm a big fan of the band Creed. I grew up listening to them.
I love Creed, dude.
Yeah,
I love Creed,
and they got a bad rap as well. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how much crap I've taken for liking that band over the years, and some of the. And like I'll hear jokes from like other bands who kind of sound like they do. I'm like, dude, why are you making fun of them? They're just more successful.
Right.
Like you're just hating. You're just being jealous.
I don't understand like Higher, My Sacrifice, like those records. I'm like, yo, those records are dope.
Yeah,
those songs got me through a rough time.
Exactly.
So I'm like, how?
And I can see, now it's one thing to like, okay, maybe I just don't like the way their music sounds. That's one thing. But when people start like picking them apart because of like the way they look or the way they present themselves, it's like, okay, do you really feel this way, or are you just doing it because everyone else is saying that? Are you trying to like say that stuff because it's the cool thing to hate on this band? But like, how much do you even know about them?
I feel like a lot happened. I feel like as I grew older, I started hearing that about the Foo Fighters a lot.
Yeah,
with Dave Grohl. Because I was a Nirvana guy, but I always loved Dave Grohl. I've always loved him. And I'm not saying I have every Foo Fighters album, but I know their hit songs. Yeah. And I know, how he wrote them, and I know that story.
And they've been going over 20 years now. And
I love their music.
And they're as popular as they've ever been.
Right.
Dave Grohl's kind of like the guy right now.
Absolutely. And I saw that he had to, from seeing it, he had to fight for his credit.
Absolutely.
After the band, they're like, well, you're not as good as a songwriter as Kurt. You were just a drummer. Yeah. And just seeing now where he's built his career and the respect he even has for every genre. has been awesome. The person I've grown to respect, even though I was not from that genre at all, but I love the way he gives back to people, is Paul McCartney.
Yes.
And how he will just jump on anybody's song. He'll work with anybody.
He will.
He'll work with Kanye. He'll work with Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
He'll work with anyone. If he feels it, he'll jump on the drums.
Absolutely.
He'll grab the guitar. He'll sing background vocals. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That even at his age, he's giving back.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's one of those guys. I mean, he has nothing to prove to anybody.
Right.
I mean, certainly in the rock world, he's at as high as it can be. He's royalty when it comes to that. So it's, yeah. So I mean, he's pretty much bulletproof when it comes to that. But yeah. I mean, I always that negative energy is really weird, and sometimes people get more famous, I think, for the notoriety, for the controversy, than even for the work itself. I mean, look, we live in a world where people are famous just for being famous, more so than a particular talent that they have.
Absolutely. Or
the body of work. And certainly in worlds of both rock and hip hop, you hear about like feuds that certain artists have with each other, and that almost becomes bigger than them being known for their music. Like I don't really know a lot about their music, but I know about the feud between Drake and Meek Mill, for example. Like I mean, I don't know why those guys are fighting. I don't know what happened, but I know that was like the big feud a couple years ago, and so it's weird how sometimes that crosses over.
It's never the funny thing is about it is like with genres, with rock beefs, with hip hop beefs. It's never something of like, look, if you play a basketball game,
yeah,
I have on a home jersey, you have on an away jersey.
Yeah,
we just have to see who's a better basketball player.
Sure,
it's nothing personal.
Yeah,
you're just the opponent. I want to shoot, I want to score, and I want to win.
Yeah, I think, especially if you're naturally competitive.
If you're naturally competitive. I'm a naturally competitive person.
Yeah.
I feel like I make the best wrestling themes out there.
Sure.
Or I did for my time that I felt like I've been at my peak doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not hating on anybody else for their success. I feel like I'm 100% comfortable. I feel like you're not supposed to feel like when you're doing it, you're the best doing it. But you also can tell another man, hey, bro, you're great at this. I have no problem saying
it's almost like you're competing with yourself more than anything else.
Like, I've always been this way. This is where I've always been. I've always been like, I feel like I'm the best at what I do, but I have no problem telling another man what he's better at me at.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what, this guy, you're better than me at this, bro.
Yeah. Sign of respect.
Do it. You the way you do that, I'm learning from you. Mm-hmm. But I also feel like what I do in the overall package, I'm the best at it.
Yeah.
But I can also tell another grown man, like, look, bro, what you do there is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
You're better than me at that. I can't do what you do. But, that doesn't take any away from what I feel. It's like, for example, Michael Jordan wasn't a three-point shooter.
Yeah.
Didn't shoot a lot of threes. Mm-hmm. But Stephen Curry is a better three-point shooter than Michael Jordan.
Right.
But Michael Jordan's a better basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sense of how you have to think.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you get unnecessary beefs with people either.
Yeah.
Like, if we're a competition, like, if I'm on a track with another rapper, I'm trying to have the best verse on the record.
Of course.
But I'm not.
But that's where it ends. Like, you're not trying to make it personal with
right. It's no reason to make it personal. But the thing is, the fans and the stuff eat at it, and the media promotes it, and it becomes so much bigger. And then naturally, you're a man, and you have a sense of pride.
Yeah.
So that kicks in, and the ego kicks in before the actual common sense of like, why are we beefing?
Right.
And then you sit down 10 years later, you guys have a conversation, and you're like, we could have made so much money.
Right.
If we just
went on a tour together.
If we just went on a tour and just shook hands and was just like, hey, bro, this ain't worth it.
Yeah.
I'm glad when guys can. There's two things I like about the music industry. I like when guys do. Mm-hmm. I like when guys put other people on when they're still at their peak.
Yeah.
Not when they're done. And then they want to put somebody else on when they don't have the same value as if they were at their peak.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm a band and I'm on my third album and I'm literally at my peak. I'm on 98 Rock. I'm on every rock station, and then I put another band on right when I'm at my peak. Then I feel more accomplished than being 20 years in.
Well, I mean, it's like going back to pro wrestling. You're putting someone over,
right?
And that reflects good on you as well.
Absolutely.
Like, you're not losing anything by putting someone else over. You're helping the business overall.
Absolutely, and that's
giving back.
And see, this goes back to the initial conversation with Swerve. I was doing my own thing. I was in the wrestling business 3.5, 4 years by the time I met him. I knew him from years ago, but we just started working together for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
But his brand, us connecting brands, and him having a certain brand already helped me get to a certain level.
Yeah.
So he put me on and put me over to the world of wrestling now, where I'm at a certain level that it would have been way harder. It took me way longer without me understanding, but I also had no ego. Saying, another grown man saying, hey, if you trust me, I can put you here, and said, no, I won't do it myself.
Yeah.
It's like, no. Like, you know what, bro? I trust you. So we do this podcast, the vision of his podcast, everything's ran as a team. We all work together. Me, him, Big Swole, Ariel Monroe, Cedric Alexander's wife.
Yeah.
And our other two guys, Siren and Mike, who are the editors and the video guys. We're all a big family, and we all shoot the episode stuff together, but there was no ego when I got with him. There's no reason for me to beef with him or, not take the opportunity at hand.
You learn from each other.
Right, we learn from each other. The stuff that he learned from me musically, I have had the opportunity to learn from him as a brand. One thing about Swerve is Swerve is naturally a good dude. He has a natural charisma.
Yeah.
So the reason why wrestling fans love him is because when you see him wrestle, it's just a natural thing.
Sure.
It's nothing forced. Some of these wrestlers come out and you're like, nah, this ain't you, bro.
Right.
When musically, when you hear theme songs from me, it doesn't feel forced. It just feels like I like doing it. So when we come together and build this podcast brand, you could tell that we all really are cool with each other. People get on podcasts, they don't even know each other.
Sure.
They're just talking.
Yeah.
They're just doing a podcast together and they don't know each other. They don't know each other's mothers. They don't know each other's family. Swerve knows my mom. He knows my family. I know his family. So the fact that we've all come together is a beautiful thing.
Gotcha. One last question before we go.
Absolutely.
A couple years ago, some friends of mine were interviewing me. They had a radio show or a podcast for a little bit, and they were big hip hop fans, and they were asking me a few questions, like, because I guess a couple years ago, you know Ed Sheeran, the singer songwriter.
Absolutely.
Well, apparently he had gotten known just like for fun. He would go to like open mics and like start rapping. And apparently he was pretty good at it, and like some of the clips went viral and everything. And my buddies, they were kind of asking me, is like, Jack, what do you think? Do you think Ed Sheeran's a good rapper, or like do you think that like he might have the ability to like cross over to that if he wanted to do that? And honestly, I didn't even know how to answer that.
Right.
Again, not being a real hip hop guy, I was like, well, I don't know if I'm the right person to ask for that, because I don't. It's like I can hear something and I can decide whether it sounds good or not. I don't really know enough about the craft to tell you whether he's technically a good rapper or not.
Absolutely.
And I've heard, and I know it's one thing to have like, to be able to freestyle, which I think is incredible. Like, that's something that, I don't even know. That must take a lot of practice, a lot of skill to do. Like, I can't even imagine coming up with lyrics on the spot, just and having them rhyme and make sense. Like, that's incredible. But so I know it has something to do with lyrics and with the flow, delivery, and the certain tone of voice. But it's like I tried to tell them, I was like, man, I'm not really the right person to ask for that, because I don't really have the right answers as to what makes a person a good rapper or not. So now that I have you here,
Absolutely.
as someone who is an expert on that, what in your opinion separates like the really good rappers from the rappers who aren't so good, in your opinion?
Great question. And also, I'll follow it up with some advice as well for artists who are coming up as well on what to do. I have no problem giving the game. An artist to me that is a good artist is someone who, one, understands who they are as an artist. I believe as a hip hop artist, it is essential that you know who you are. You know your demographic. Mm-hmm. I commend the rappers who are more able to master what they're best at. That's what makes a good rapper to me. You don't have to be the most lyrical guy. Mm-hmm. You don't have to. I commend a better flow, because you don't have to be a great lyricist, but if you can flow to a beat, that will extend your career 5, 10, 15 years, because you can ride a beat. Mm-hmm. You can harmonize to a beat. Yeah. You don't have to have the best vocabulary. Hell, you can say bat, cat, rat for all I care. Mm-hmm. But as long as it's a good flow, I believe that what makes a good rapper first. I believe a good flow. And
I think I see what you mean, because in terms of singers, like having a good voice.
Yes, having a good voice. Like DMX is the perfect example.
Even if you're not necessarily the best writer, if you have like a certain range in your voice or a tone of your voice, like it carries that. Right. I imagine when it comes to flow, when you're rapping, that's a similar. Like there are certain guys where you can hear the sound of their voice and it makes sense. It cuts through. In particular, Jay-Z is one of those guys. He has a very distinctive voice.
You want to know who's the perfect person? The example I use, I always tell people DMX.
Yeah.
DMX.
He has that really like rough sound.
Make me lose my mind. Up and up. He is very simple. Yeah. He's very simple. He's not using these big, incredible lyrical words. Mm-hmm. He's straight to the point as a rapper. Stop, open up shop. Yeah. Want to rock what? Want to drop what? And he's just really simple. But he gets to the point. The music is good. He has a catchy chorus. Yeah. And he's really rapping. And he's getting to the point. And his delivery and his flow overtakes the lyrical part of it. Sometimes you can be a great lyricist, but you cannot ride a beat. Right. So I think that the most important thing, I think what makes an artist good is, one, understanding who they are, and two, having a good delivery to a beat. You don't have to, I would recommend knowing it, but you don't have to be a hip-hop historian and know this. And I recommend you do for to know where it started and come from. But if you don't, then, learn how to ride a beat. And make sure you're saying something, even if you don't have the best vocabulary. Here's one thing I want to give people too, and just a little game I want to give artists, because I always want to tell people this. Know your demographic. Know what you're shooting for. You will get respected so much more if you know your demographic of what you're doing. If you're a guy who makes club songs, make that. That is who you are. You will end up having more longevity for knowing who you are, and you will have more respect and understanding from your audience. If you're, let's say, you're a rock band that people like when you make emotional music. Yeah. Stick with what you do. Now, it doesn't mean you can't expand and do other things, but stick with that.
Know your audience.
As a hip-hop artist, know your demographic. Know your audience. Promote your music. Practice your craft. For years, me and my friend Chris would be on the phone and we would battle on the phone, running my grandmother's phone bill crazy, putting beats on over the phone, freestyling, battling each other. Just, hey bro, you ready to rap? Yeah, bro. I'll put a beat on. This is about the time you used to burn CDs. I'd get instrumentals and I would rap to every song, freestyling, building up my skill. We would battle on the phone all the time. Who had the better verses? And we would just go. And cognitively, what it was doing, I didn't know that it was building my skill to the point where now I can write a song and know everything that I need to do. Or somebody say, hey, freestyle to a beat. I can rap for 5 minutes and freestyle. And relatively stay on point the whole time. And I believe that was what makes a good artist. You don't have to know how to freestyle, even though that adds to your arsenal. Sure. The greatest writers in rap aren't the greatest freestylers. Nas, Eminem can freestyle, but like Nas, people like that, they aren't the greatest freestylers, but they're awesome songwriters. Yeah. So, learn how to flow to a beat, and I would also say too, cater the one skill I want to say too, besides learning how to flow to a beat and knowing your demographic, is have a great ear for production. because a good beat will take you a long way as a hip hop artist. If they can nod their head to it, you could be saying bullshit, but they're still going to rock with you.
Like one of my favorite examples of that is In the Club from 50 Cent.
Dr. Dre, amazing beat. 50 Cent is not saying much in that song at all.
It's so simple, but it's really melodic and catchy, and just no matter who you are, everyone knows that.
Yep. Go shorty, it's your birthday.
Yeah.
Make it simple. Make the chorus simple.
Yeah.
He can rap whatever he wants in the verses. He can say whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But just make that chorus hit. He flowed to the beat. Mm-hmm. He knew what he was talking about.
Sure.
And the beat's catchy. That's all you need.
Absolutely. Man, this is awesome. I feel like we could talk about this for hours. I feel like this is a good stopping point. I would love to have you back on.
Whenever you want, man. Part 2, Part 3.
I'd love to come on yours one of these days.
Hey, man, we will make that happen, especially when everything with Teasy's Table gets going. I will be inviting people of all sorts of the world.
Let's talk about your podcast for a second.
Absolutely.
Teasy's Table.
Absolutely.
I know you worked on that with Swerve, and I think Simone Johnson, yes, of the Johnson family. Her dad is a certain champion of the people, should we say?
Absolutely. That's my little sis. Love her to death. For you guys, youtube.com/Swerve City Podcast. We have a podcast every other week. We just did a podcast with Joaquin Wild, formerly known as DJ Z from Impact.
Or Zima Ion before that.
Zima Ion. I'll give you guys a sneak peek. Me and Swerve are doing an album, and me and Joaquin are now working on an EP. Mm-hmm. He makes beats, if you guys don't know. So he just sent me a beat the other day. So
he is a real DJ.
So he is a real DJ. He sent me some beats, and we're working on.
Is it Joaquin Wild now?
Joaquin Wild. Yep. So we're working on a project as well. Our group is called the Bar Exam.
Nice.
So we are, we're doing the Bar Exam project, and I'm working on a project with Swerve too. So I'm in a zone right now. So we have that. We have the Swerve City Podcast, and now Teasy's Table is coming. And Teasy's Table, I'm going to invite. I'm inviting people that you wouldn't expect. You don't have to know them.
Yeah.
But I want to get people on the panel that people like yourself, someone who is a musician, someone who has the same mind that I do. I want to bring people on the podcast. And it's not about just putting people on or putting people. That's not about what it's about. It's about putting like minds together so you can get different perspectives on different topics of the world. I would love to get you down with me, you, and Swerve, and have you speak the other side of the rock genre.
Sure.
Because we always speak on the hip hop side.
Yeah.
And we want to further understand the rock side.
Sure.
What is the culture differences? What is it that makes, not saying it specifically, but like an African American person just cater straight to hip hop?
Yeah. That's a good question.
And that's what I'm saying.
That's a great question.
Because bring that up.
Rock and roll historically was a fusion of going back to the 40s and 50s. Was a fusion of white, majority white country music along with black R&B artists.
Right.
And it was a mixture of those two, of those two cultures, kind of coming together and making this brand new sound. And for some reason, I guess part of the problem is that the industry just kind of thinks that rock is dead. It's just for old white guys and this and that, and it's really is a lot more colorblind than people think.
I would like to I would love to sit down with me, you, and Swerve, and I would really like to talk about us as hip hop fans.
Yeah,
we know when someone's voice comes on.
Sure.
And we know when it's that person.
Mm-hmm.
People who are rock fans know the guitarist, know what instrument they're playing, know when their part comes in.
Yeah.
And I would like to learn that because I don't know.
Sure.
Only person I know is Slash. I know when it's his part.
Yeah.
A lot of times he has a lot of solos, so I know.
I think that might be more in common, with guys who actually play in bands than maybe even the average rock fan.
Okay.
I think that might be more of a case of musicians being able to pick apart that even more so. Although you still have some musicians who are just distinct enough where it's just the average non-musician who happens to be a fan can pick it up, like Neil Peart, the drummer for the band Rush, for example. Like he has like a certain way of playing that just people just know that he's an amazing drummer, even if they don't know anything about playing drums. You know, sometimes things like that are able to cut through.
Right. So like, I've also learned that like if you're more of a fan of their personality of that person,
sure,
you're more likely to know. Like I know when Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers is playing bass for a song.
Yes,
I know that's him.
Yeah,
because it's very distinct.
Yeah,
I know
he's incredible.
I know that's Flea. Like, so I would love to sit down on a future podcast and really break this down.
Yeah,
because I have so many questions I have to ask you that I really want to learn.
And before I started singing, I was a bass player, so I was a big fan of Flea and his work and his just the way he would fuse like R&B and funk with and you know his father was a jazz musician, so he had originally been a jazz trumpet player. Then he transitioned that into playing bass.
Absolutely, and you know, hopefully, you know, we're able to get all this down and get all of us together. And get a melting pot of discussions. Get a room full of musicians of different creeds,
for sure,
different cultures,
yes,
different ethnic groups. Like you got the hip hop artists, you got the rock guy, and get a couple people from both genres and other genres.
Yeah,
and really strip down. Like, okay.
Especially,
what is the differences?
And plus, you can make it how like wrestling is the thing that kind of brings everybody
together. Right.
Had to have that connecting thread. That would make for.
We're going to set that up. We're going to set that up.
Like I said, man, I know we're going a little bit long on this. Like I said, we could talk about this for hours.
Absolutely.
Antoine, I'm so glad you came out and did this, man.
Thank you, bro.
This has been a lot of fun. We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely, man. We'll get this again, and we'll set that up, what we're talking about. We'll get that set up. I'm going to holler at Swerve as soon as this is over.
All right, man. Just real quick, where can people find you and your podcast and all your music online? Go ahead and plug away, my friend.
You guys can follow me at everything on Teasy Scott, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Just put in Monteasy, Teasy Scott. You guys can book me for any features, any artists. Then I'm going to start doing consultations, any motivational speaking bookings to your schools. monteasytv at gmail.com, monteasytv at gmail.com. You have any questions for the podcast, for Swerve City Podcast, that, you know, any fan questions, you guys can email swervecitypodcast at gmail.com. Make sure you follow our new Patreon at patreon.com/Swerve City Podcast. Follow our Twitter at twitter.com/Swerve City Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, my personal one, at youtube.com/More to Life ENT TV. And the YouTube for the podcast is youtube.com/Swerve City Podcast. Once again, everything Teasy Scott on Instagram, Twitter. Follow me there.
Very cool. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this. We'll have to do it again.
Anytime, man.
Cool. Thanks once again to Monteasy. Man, what a great guy. Just a fantastic partner for me at the announce booth, and I'm glad I've been getting to know this guy just as an artist and as a human being, man. He's just a great guest, and I really look forward to continuing to work with him in the future. Hopefully I'll be on his podcast. I'm sure he'll be back on mine. And by the way, for those of you guys listening, I know that there was some wind that you could hear, and that kind of messed up the audio, but I do apologize about that. When we recorded it, we were outside in a park, and we were using my iPhone to record it. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get indoors and find a space where we could record quietly. It didn't work out, but hopefully next time we'll try and fix that. So I do apologize if you listen to that. That kind of messed up the audio quality a little bit, but that was why. So, yeah, again, make sure you check out Monteasy on Instagram and Twitter at Teasy Scott, and you can email him at monteasytv at gmail.com. And the Swerve City Podcast is available wherever podcasts are. Make sure you check that out. And as I mentioned before, we work for Generation Championship Wrestling. Follow that on Facebook and Twitter at GCW Wrestling Pro. They recently updated the handle. It used to be GCW 420. Now it is GCW Wrestling Pro. And they're available on YouTube as well. And they also have a new weekly show on YouTube. Check out GCW's Thursday Night Fire. Only on YouTube. I believe it's at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm not 100% sure, but hopefully I haven't done any. I used to host their previous show, GCW Nation. Hopefully they'll bring me in to do some hosting and do some other stuff for Thursday Night Fire. But now it's on, and so make sure you check that just to figure out what GCW is all about. So that is it for this episode of the Phoenix Report. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at jackxconnor. You can also follow me on Instagram at jackxconnor as well. Like me on Facebook at facebook.com/jackconnormusic. Feel free to check out my band, Vertebreaker, at facebook.com/vertebreakerband, on Twitter at vertebreakerfl. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, make sure you email me at jackconnorpodcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet me with the hashtag Phoenix Report. You can like this podcast, leave a comment, make sure you subscribe, go listen to all the other episodes. And thank you as always for continuing to tune in. This has been the Phoenix Report. I'm Jack Connor, and I'll see you later.